And ladies and gentlemen, here we are again for another episode of Hitting the Keynote, how to communicate complex subject matter, which is to say in the year 2021, almost anything to almost anyone. And we have a special guest today, Hans-Peter Bech. Thank you very much for joining us, Hans-Peter. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me on your show. I have really been looking forward to it.
Good man. And what part of the world are you calling us in from today? You're on the other side of the Atlantic for me.
Yeah, today I am actually just north of Copenhagen.
Okay.
Outside a small town called Hillerød. It's about 20 miles north of Copenhagen.
Hillerød.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Good man. Well, thank you for joining us. It's 9 o'clock Eastern for the folks just getting to their desks for me over here. And I think you're just past lunchtime or in the mid-afternoon. So
yeah, it's 3 p.m. Yeah.
3 p.m. So we are streaming live and on YouTube and LinkedIn, but I anticipate most people will be listening to this on the podcast, which will be dumped a little while from now. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to reach out to Hans-Peter, stay tuned to the end. We will give you his contact details, but I want to get straight started with a concept I saw from the title of your latest book, Hans-Peter, Going Global on a Shoestring Budget. Now, right in that title, and what I love about the title is I know there's complexity. Because if you're going global in your business, you have to understand tax laws, you have to understand the economies of scale in different countries, you have to understand culture. There's so much stuff in going global. I know it's complicated. So this is why I reached out to you, because the question is, how does one communicate this very complicated thing of going global in businesses to, let's say, the layperson, to the person that isn't in your industry? So let's start really big and we'll hone in from there. Now, you took an entire book to do it. Can you give it to us in a paragraph?
No.
Sum it up in one paragraph, my friend. Let's see.
Yeah, the book is almost 400 pages, right? Okay. and it took a couple of years to write it, and you could say that most of the time was used to bring it down from 1,000 pages to the 400 that actually got published, because it's a very complicated matter. Yeah. If in a nutshell, we all know the Nike slogan, "Just do it."
Right.
If I should put it into a slogan for how to go global on the shoestring, it would be, don't just do it.
Okay.
And it means you had to think a lot before you act.
Brilliant.
And when you act, consider it an experiment rather than, the big plan that you're going to execute.
Okay.
Because no plan, even though that you spend a lot of time thinking about it, will survive the meeting with reality. So be prepared to say, wow, this actually went better than anticipated. So how do I accelerate the scale? Or this didn't go as well as anticipated, which is most often the outcome. Right. So what do I need to do in terms of corrections? And the reason I say think thoroughly before you implement it, because before you go into action mode, is that when you face reality and things doesn't work the way you anticipated, now you need to figure out what is it that you should change. And if you haven't meticulously documented your assumptions, you will not know what to change to make an improvement. And that's why the slogan should be, don't just do it, think and then act.
Yeah, I mean, love it or not, we live in a slogan world. And what I love about slogans is precisely what you've just done, right? You've taken 4,000 pages and said, basically, I've got to arrest people's attention. How do I do that? Don't just do it. And you linked it to something that everybody knows, right? Anchoring, I think we call this in communication. You anchored your slogan to Nike's slogan. Now, Nike, they have a multi-bazillion-dollar budget, right, to push their slogan out there. Most people and even companies do not. So you've anchored to the just do it slogan and said, don't just do it. And I also love, it reminds me of a quote. It goes, it might be Winston Churchill. I hope I credited that correctly. Everybody has That's right. What is it? Everybody has a plan until it meets first contact with the enemy. Something like that, because your plan immediately changes. Look, I'll give you Mike Tyson's one. He said, everyone's got a plan until you get a punch in the face, right? That's what Mike Tyson says.
Yeah. I think the one with the plan is actually a German general.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, from a couple of 100 years ago.
Okay, yeah, it could very well be. And it's just been used year over year. But you're right.
Yeah.
It's something along the lines of, no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
That's it.
Like
yes.
That. Yeah, that's right. So really, what you're communicating there is you need to be able to think and flex immediately, right? Little tests. Don't just do it. Just test, maybe.
Yeah, don't just do it. Well, let's go back to another slogan.
Okay.
IBM was famous for a slogan called "Think."
Right. One word. Yeah.
One word. Think.
Right.
And then Apple came along in the 80s, and they changed that slogan slightly, and it became "Think Differently."
Right. The enemy of Big Blue, right? Apple was going up against IBM.
Yeah.
Right.
So going international, going to another market where you have no brand recognition, where you are unfamiliar with the culture.
Right.
There is a certain amount of preparation that you need to do. And I'm laying that out in the book in a lean format, because you can do market assessments from now on until forever. You know, that's and you don't need to know everything, but there are a number of things that you need to consider if you want to go global. And I have a couple of models in the book that you can use to rather quickly assess how you should attack, if you should select to go into a certain market, and if you do, then how you should do it. Now, in these days where we have the internet, there is obviously an opportunity for companies to go global without even considering whether it should be one country or the other, because again, by doing your marketing in a certain way, you can make customers find you, right?
Okay.
A lot of my clients find me. And the reason they do that is that I have written a book. It's published all over the world. So people read it and they say, hey, I'm in a situation where I think Hans-Peter Bech maybe can help me. So they call me. And that model is called inbound lead generation. And that's possible for, and I describe that very thoroughly in the book, for a certain type of business-to-business software. It is possible by understanding what search engine optimization means and search engine marketing. If you really know what that means and work constructively with that, you can actually make customers call you. Okay. And if we consider, language is a barrier, obviously, if you want to go international. But there is about 1.5 billion people on this globe who are prepared to use a software application in English.
Okay.
So that's a general advice I make in my book. If you want to go global on a shoestring, why not start with people speaking English?
Okay, so allow me to break that down. Did you say 1.5 billion people are prepared to use, and the programming language is any program language? You mean just English, right?
It's nothing to do with the programming language. It has to do with the user interface.
That's actually really interesting. I've never thought about that before. The English language, which just happened to be the one after the British Empire really circulated it around the globe, has caught onto something that I think will never repeat in history, which is the World Wide Web. And the fact that, these programming languages, because they were birthed in Silicon Valley, happen to be in English. So the rest of the world is programming in this language. I never even thought about that, right? Mm-hmm. Right, that's really interesting. Okay, so now those countries can capitalize on an English-speaking marketplace, right? For the first time in human history, internationally, with almost no barriers, right? The internet, right? Just fiber network everywhere. So let's take something complicated like search engine optimization. right? That, in fact, just those 3 words right there are kind of complicated. How do we communicate the importance of SEO, search engine optimization, to businesses that are looking to expand, let's say from the United States, because most of the people on my LinkedIn are kind of here, right? To other countries that are non-English speaking. So how do we communicate that messaging to them? Search engine optimization needs to be crucial to your sort of exporting messaging so that you can get clients in other countries that don't speak English. Is that a good place to start?
That's definitely a place we can start, and it makes a lot of sense. Sure. Because if you are in a position where you, by using search engine optimization, can generate inbound traffic to your website, right, and you can generate leads, that is obviously a major advantage compared to the situation where you need to go out and find and call and initiate contacts.
So how would you consult a customer to set their website up so that their search engine optimization is primed for inbound leads there? I
can tell you how I do it. Okay. And there is a linguistic-ish side to it, and there is a more search engine technical side to it. The first thing is you must understand what language your potential customers are using when they search for solutions to problems that they have that you can fix, that your software can fix.
Give us an example. What would somebody be searching for, one of your clients?
Let's say I'm looking for an advanced spell checker. I'm an author, I'm writing books. English is not my native language, so I'm looking for an advanced spell checker. Okay. So I will be tying in spell checker, English, grammatical corrections. Those would be the type of words that I will be using.
Okay, and how do I make sure my website appears when you search?
You need to have those words on your website. You need to have those words on your pages, on your blogs, and they need to be, and that's on the technical side, you have to make it easy for the Google grabber or the Bing grabber, or those grabbers from the search engine companies that trawls the web and index the websites. They will value what is the key words on your website, and if they match with what I'm looking for, there will be a hit when I search on a search engine with the words that I use, and their website's coming up on the first or second page. So if you don't have those words in the content that you produce or publish on your website, right, that I use to look for those products, I won't find you.
Does it matter if I have those words listed once or if they're listed multiple times? Does that
multiple time helps, and it's they must be in the, and that's sort of the technical side of it. It right. must be in the header of the page. It must be in the meta tags. It must be in the body text. Your body text will typically have titles and subtitles, and they should be in there. But you know, it's a balance. You shouldn't just overflow your content with those keywords. It has to be a natural part of the language that you're speaking. So really making an effort to speak the language that your customers is speaking is going to help you do exactly right. that. Right. Because the objective, the primary mission of the search engine is to give the customers, their users, the most relevant content possible.
Right.
So the closer you are to your customer's language, the more often you will be found.
And so this this is part of the buyer's journey, which, reading on your LinkedIn profile, you've clearly been working on this buyer's journey. I've heard it a lot of times. I think the big industrial folks like Gartner has a sort of magic quadrant, or they have advice on the buyer's journey. Can you articulate, just for the audience that's maybe never heard of the buyer's journey before, what is the buyer's journey?
The buyer's journey is the various steps you go through that ends with you buying something. Okay. But it starts with some sort of interest. There is this old acronym called AIDA: awareness, interest, desire, action.
Okay.
So, and I'm primarily writing about business to business issues.
Okay.
So let's say that I'm a CFO in a company, and I have certain issues that I deal with. I don't pay my my creditors on time. That's a big issue I have. So I'm looking around the internet for a solution to that.
Okay.
And I will get certain hits, and this could be sort of the first step in my buyer journey. I'm looking not for products. I'm just looking for ideas of how to improve my situation.
Solution. So the first step in the buyer's journey we can say is I'm searching for a solution.
Maybe I'm searching for other people's experience.
Yeah, that's right. I have a problem is the first step. Now I need to figure out what the problem is.
Yeah.
Right.
And if somebody has the same problem and what they do about it, and maybe they can reorganize the way they're doing things, that there are many ways to solve this problem. I'm not particularly looking for a product, but at a certain stage, I find out that I probably need some software to improve the way I manage these credits or invoices.
I have a problem. I'm searching for what the problem is, and now I'm looking for a solution.
Now I'm looking for a specific solution.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't even reached out to anybody yet. I haven't even touched a vendor, have I? I'm still just doing all the searching. So the buyer's journey is a lonely road at the beginning. We don't know. We, the producer who wants to sell something, are still somewhere over here, right? The buyer is doing their own thing. What's the next step? So they figure they need some kind of solution, likely software in the world we live in. Where do they go now?
Now they call a meeting with other people in the company.
Yeah.
And there will be a representative from the IT department, and there'll be somebody in his organization, and he'll ask them to write a requirement specification, or a brief summary of what it is that they need.
Right.
And then he'll ask the IT guy to look for options. So he's no longer involved in the project, so to speak.
Right. And I was going to say, this is where relationships, I think, are important, because you're the CEO. You've decided that, hey, I need to pay my vendors sooner, so I've got a problem. I researched. I think there's a solution out there. Now I'm asking my team to go do some work. Now, if I, as the person who provides this solution, has a relationship with somebody on that team, they might pick up the phone to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
Yeah. So buyer's journey is, I have a problem. I need to identify the problem. There are solutions. Now I call a team meeting together so that I can figure out which solution is that's what I'm calling the team meeting for, right?
Yeah. What are requirements, and what solutions are available out there that would meet these requirements?
Right. How is everything going to fit together? And this is why you've got somebody from IT. You probably have somebody from finance to make sure we can afford it. You have somebody from compliance to make sure that we don't screw anything up in our systems or break any laws, right? Privacy laws, all this kind of stuff. Who else is going to be in that meeting? There's going to be, who else are the decision makers? So it's the problem, right? So accounts payable, they'll be in the meeting.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
In this case, that's right. And that's likely it. Okay, so then these people now have a task. So what are they doing? They're going to go out and start Google searching, or is there something happening before?
No. I think that's what we're going to do. They're going to look for not necessarily specific products yet. They're going to look for how other people have managed that same situation. They're going to call their peers, and and they'll get ideas. And at a certain point, they'll start looking for products. They figure out that what they need is an extension to their ERP system.
Okay, so this, I want to make a total tangent, and then we're going to come back to this. This is what I love about the internet, and I mean love, because you just said they'll go to their peers to see if their peers have found a solution to the problem. That's reference, that's old school referencing, right? But today, when companies in the past, when they produced a product, if the product wasn't a good product, they could almost get away with it. Today, with all of the Glassdoor.com and ratings and Google ratings, and if you don't produce a consistent, long-term, excellent product, you lose out because no one's going to recommend you at the end of the day. But if you're having great customer service as an organization, you're communicating well, you've produced an excellent product, you're probably at that stage of the buyer's journey getting referenced in. So we had, I've got a problem and I need to identify it, to, are there solutions out there, to, yes, there are, let's call a team meeting. Now let's go and talk to people about our problem and find out what solutions they've got. They still haven't reached out to any manufacturers, but they already probably have a short list of manufacturers by the time they've hit this point, because all their friends in the industry have said maybe 3 or 4 names over and over again. So now, next step, do they make the call to those 3 or 4 vendors, or what happens now?
I don't think so. That's normally it's the IT guy who's responsible for this part of the buyer's journey. So he needs to figure out what is available out there and what is the cost associated. And if he can find that on the internet without talking to anybody, he would prefer to do that. Yeah. You know, the last person in the world that we wants to talk with is a sales guy, right?
That's right. Because they know they're going to get inundated with phone calls and spammed and all this stuff. And it's just, you know what? Here's my trick, and I wish people would know this. If I don't have a relationship with a salesperson and I get emailed, right-click, add to junk, and I never see their name again.
Yeah.
And then my junk folder just fills and fills and fills and auto dumps, you know, once a month. And I wonder if those sales reps knew, because they send multiple messages. Occasionally, if I have to go into my junk folder because something mistakenly got in there, not often, I'll see like 30 messages all chained to the same conversation. And the rep's having a conversation with himself. Basically saying, I wonder if this would be good for you, Eddie, or I wonder if that would be good for you, Eddie. And they keep forwarding the same email, which I've never read. So anyway, yeah, relationship counts. Right. So they'll go out and they'll do some research based on the conversations they're having with their peers. They'll get pricing. They'll see if the specs fit. That's another thing, right? You know, so even working with a security IT company myself, all our specs are all online. So a customer can see if it will fit and not break anything else in their data center without talking to anybody. Right? Yeah. Through all of that stuff online, they could actually go straight to our partner community and make a purchase without even talking to a soul. Right. Yeah. So, okay, the IT people are doing their research. Hopefully, or not hopefully, but in their case, hopefully not talking to anybody, but still getting it done. Now what? Is a 7th step talking to a human being?
Maybe. But the thing about software is to understand that software is seldom the solution. Software is normally just a part of the solution. Now, in this example that we are talking about here, improving the way we deal with paying invoices, it's a matter about how we receive the invoices, what we do with the invoices when we receive them, how we get them into the system, how we circulate them internally in the organization, how we match them with the purchase orders, how we get them signed off, how we get them allocated to an account in the general ledger. Right. There's a lot of process that needs to take place internally that I, as a CFO, I'm concerned about, right?
Right.
How can we do this, and how much of a change is that? And do I need more people, or I would rather have fewer people? And that can be software in various steps of this process. So if I went to a vendor's website and found a white paper that was explaining how various companies did this thing.
Right.
And that was not really, it was not about a product. It could be then later in the white paper explaining how the product fit into the process. I would probably be more interested in that. That would be more inspiration to me until I come to a conclusion about exactly how I want to do this.
Right.
And then when I come to that conclusion, if this is what this is how I want to do it, and that means that I need this kind of software, and I could find information about that software and the pricing and everything without talking to anybody, I would probably make a decisions on a pilot. Right. And if I could download that pilot or get access to that pilot, if it is cloud-based SaaS software, without talking to anybody, and there was enough tutorials on video that I could get going without talking to anybody, I would do it.
Yeah.
But obviously, there are situations where I need to talk to people, where customization is required, or where it's something, it seems that I like the software, but there are certain questions that I have. Then I need to be able to get in touch with somebody.
Right.
But I could tell you that a lot of the buying journeys going on, probably not only in the software industry, but everywhere, doesn't need to have a salesperson involved.
Huh. You know, and what I would say to that is, and to the sales reps and sales engineers that are listening to this podcast in the future, is that you want to be above the crowd. You see, to me, an excellent salesperson is one of the most selfless people in the world. And people, when I say that, most people are like, really? I spoke to a used car salesman that sold me a lemon. It's like, yeah, I know. That's not a great sales professional. That's just a terrible human being, right? Yeah. So a great sales professional is somebody that understands this buyer's journey. So let's walk over it so far, and then I'll make a suggestion to the sales folks listening to this. So CEO has a problem, which in this case, and I love your example, is I need to pay my vendor community, within net 30, whatever it might be, 30 days. I need to identify my problem. I need to know if there are solutions out there. And now I need to call a team meeting to say, hey, go find a solution to this problem. Now my team gets together, all the stakeholders, because this is where the complexity resides. You have auditors, you have CFOs and people of finance that can we afford it? You have compliance people. Is this going to break something so that we're then, let's say failing a GDPR law, right? Something like this. So all of those stakeholders come into play. This is why this podcast exists, because around all these stakeholders, this very complicated subject matter needs to be communicated effectively or people get in trouble. As an example, you don't bring legal counsel into that conversation. You could be violating a GDPR rule where the software vendor you choose houses their data on premise, and that's not allowed in, let's say, Germany, that has very strict privacy laws, for example. Okay, so that's why the podcast exists. Now, from there, they go out to look for a solution. They can find all the technical specs online. They most likely want to avoid, they don't want to avoid a salesperson. What people want to avoid is an annoying salesperson. That's what they actually want to avoid. Like I said, don't spam me, or I'm going to right-click, add to junk, and I'll never see your name again, which is a shame because that company could have an amazing product that I need. But because I got spammed, I will never see you again, right? So this is why behavior is so important. And then you said, then they're going to pilot it. Okay. So the excellent sales professional, the selfless one, is monitoring and moving information around the buyer's journey so that they can genuinely say, if they have a product, this is not deception, right? If they have a product, they're introducing communication and value all along. And what you just said about the white paper, brilliant. That's the salesperson of the future. Somebody who is producing what I call freeware, right? It's kind of like the freeware model. And I see this on your LinkedIn all the time, Hans-Peter, right? Your white papers, blogs, right? You're constantly giving knowledge away for free. writing a book is kind of like giving knowledge away for free. Do you know what I mean? It's like 4,000 words that took you 10 years to write, and it's $10 to buy.
Yeah.
Right? You're not retiring on that unless you're Tom Clancy, right? Or selling the Harry Potter series. So you're sort of giving something away for free, or of nominal value in the book, and certainly for free in white papers. And I suspect, and you can finish this sentence for me, you're doing it in order to attract customers to you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So tell us how that's worked out personally for you, actually.
Wonderful.
You're on this podcast. I found you. I'm like, you're giving all this stuff away from free in Europe. I'm totally going to get him on.
Yeah, I've actually written a series of podcast, a series of blog posts about the whole journey that I've been through, and how I started. I haven't been an author all my life. It's something the first book was published in 2013. That's 7 years ago.
Okay.
But it all started. I've been selling software now for 40 years. I started in 1980.
Wow.
And back then, you know, it was very, very expensive stuff.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of software back then. It was bespoke development. So it was development projects that we sold together with big computers. But in 2001, I've been working internationally most of the time. I moved back to Denmark and decided to start my own business, and it became a consulting business. So I worked for the first 10 years as a traditional management consultant, and having the same challenge that any other solo consultant has, that you only have so many hours available, right?
Right. Yeah.
And to scale that model, I would either have to grow a consulting business with junior consultants and what have you, but that wasn't what I wanted with my life. I've been in 2001. I've been 20 years on the road. I've been the CEO of several companies. I've been there, I've done that. I didn't want to do that anymore. I just wanted to run my own show and do business development projects, because that was what I loved to do. Yeah. So. And I actually got the idea from another author called Alan Weiss, who is one of the gurus for boutique consulting companies and solo practitioners. And in one of his books, he wrote that if you want to generate inbound leads, so that you don't need to generate business all the time, and if you want to run a business where you don't depend on selling hours, you need to write a book. You need the
How did that stop you? Sorry, it's a really important question. How did that stop you from selling hours writing a book? Because the book isn't a massive revenue generator. So how were you able to detach your time from your revenue by writing the book?
There are two sides of it. One, you need to bring down the time you spend on pre-sales activities.
Okay. Yeah.
So before I published my first book, I spent quite an amount of time, drinking coffee with potential clients and discussing projects that never materialized. It was interesting, but it took away the hours that I could bill.
Right.
And then it was probably also because I thought that being a consultant was the same as charging by the hour. But Alan Weiss, in his $1 million consulting book, taught me that you're not selling hours. You're selling value. You're selling results.
So do you now charge by the project as opposed to the hour?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't charge by the hour anymore.
Okay, so I want to dig into this. So that first book was what? And what was the subject matter of the first book?
It was a very simple book. It was 60 pages, and it was about doing budgets in a small company when you don't know the future.
Okay,
so a very simple book.
Was that self-published, that book, or
yes? Yeah.
Okay. So walk us through that journey then. So one day you decided to sit down with pen and paper, and you decide how did you get the idea for the book?
I decided to become a blogger, because jumping from nothing to write a book is a big leap.
Right.
So I read another book about the new rules of PR and marketing. and in that book, and that was in 2007. Yeah, 2007. I read that book about what it would take to become a blogger.
Okay.
And I thought, well, that's a great idea, because I've always enjoyed writing. So I started to writing blog posts, and I noticed that some of these blog posts generated leads. There were people who wrote what who read what I wrote, and got in touch with me and say, hey, you wrote about this and that was interesting, and we have this issue. Can you help us? And they were all over the world, and they were for smaller companies. And when a small company wants you to help them, they're not prepared to pay you for travel,
right,
half around the world and spending many days. So I developed an online consulting product where it was about sort of a time box where we say, okay, you get me so and so many hours to read about your issue, and then we have 2 sessions on Skype, and that's it. And there is a fixed price for that. So you could say it's hourly based, but it was a fixed price project that was affordable for these type of companies. Okay. And people say, yeah, that's great. Let's do that.
Right. Okay.
So then I figured out that what I needed to do was I need to break my big consulting projects down into smaller chunks that people could buy. That would be an easier purchase decision. Engaging a management consultant and paying him about 200,000 euro, that's a big decision. And there's not a lot of companies that do that. But if you can buy me for a couple of hours and the price is 3,000 or 4,000 euro, that's a completely different scenario.
And what was the product when you say buy me for a couple of hours? Because it was already online. So was it a paywall and then access to white papers?
No, in my blog post, and also in the white papers I wrote, I write about generic business issues related to software companies.
Okay.
So when my potential clients read those, they say, hey, this guy knows something about channel development, for instance, or he knows something about going global. And we're sitting here with this challenge. Either they have a project that they want to start, or they're in the middle of a project that doesn't work. We want to hear his opinion about our situation. So what they buy is that I read the material they sent me, or I listen to a presentation that they give me about their situation, about the challenge that they're facing and they want to achieve. And based on that information, we have a discussion where I say, hey, listen, and pointing them to some of the issues in their plan, why things are not fixing, and you should do this instead, and have you tried that? And it seems to me that you're thinking that way about business partners, but that's not the way business partners work. So we would have a discussion around that related to their specific issues. And they would come out of those sessions with new ideas and some feedback from a guy who's been there, done it himself for years. And apparently that is very valuable to people. And as we can do it remotely, the price tag is very reasonable because I don't have to travel.
Right, exactly. Yeah, thank you, Internet. I love technology. So you started a blog, you started putting your knowledge on there for free.
Yeah.
This reduced the amount of time you needed to go find clients, right, to a minimal, which meant your billable time was maximized. I love that. And at some point, the blog turned into a book.
Right.
How did that happen? Tell us about that.
Yeah. During my engagements with clients, I constantly got inspired with new problems or challenges that my client faced. And one of them was, how do we budget? How do we sit down and do a budget for the next year? And when we then and not only how do we do that, but when we've done that and we're into the budget year and figure out that the revenue isn't coming as we expected, but the costs are, what do we then do to adjust the budget or the forecast or the estimate? And I found out that there were certain typical errors that companies made. So I wrote a series of articles about that subject and how to do this process. And I think it was about 16 or 17 articles. And then I got the idea to compile them into a book.
I see. And when you turned them into a book, did you take the articles offline in order to be able to generate a small revenue stream of the book? No?
No, I gave the book away for free.
Oh, did you? Okay,
yeah.
So it was an ebook that you gave away for free.
Yeah, okay. I made it an ebook, and to make it look more prestigious, I found out that I could get an ISBN number for it, and then I published it.
What's an ISBN number?
An ISBN is an international book number.
Okay.
So when it has an ISBN, it gets into all the libraries' catalogs.
Oh, okay. And then why is that important? Do people? I've never looked up an ISBN number, but I suppose in the bookstore you would.
No, but there's a lot of people who look for material in libraries.
Sure.
And this way they can find me.
Right. So
it was not it was not a part of a big plan. It was I just figured out that, or I saw that all books had ISBN numbers. So I thought, well, my book also needs an ISBN number. It then turned out to be a major advantage or benefit that it did, because then it got in all the catalogs.
So now if I'm in the audience, I'm thinking, okay, so now you've written a book. It's one of millions.
Yeah.
How did you ever get your one of millions? There's a great, I think it's the title of a book about swimming to the blue ocean, but every salesperson knows this. When you're swimming in the red ocean, that's where all the sharks are feeding on the same whale carcass, right? It's a bloody ocean. You got to swim to the blue ocean where there's no competition. So if I wrote a book today, it would be in the red ocean, one of millions. How did you swim to the blue ocean with your book?
The content. I'm an author. Okay, I write books, but my books don't compete with Harry Potter.
Right.
What I write books about is business development challenges in the software industry.
And are you saying that's so unique that you're pretty much the only game in town?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's super fascinating.
That's my niche.
Yeah, that's your niche, and that just happens to be something. But that's kind of interesting to me, because surely there are other people with your expertise. How is it you're the only game in town when it comes to a book? Is it the wording that's different, or is it truly no one else wrote about this subject matter?
Oh, there are plenty of people writing about these subject matters, but not specifically for the software industry.
Huh.
And I think that's a general misunderstanding. A lot of marketers do. So if you write a book, you say, I need to address as big a market as possible. And we all know that the bigger the market you address, the less relevant you become. That's the way it is. My idea was go exactly in the opposite direction. I said, no, I want to write for a very specific market. I want the potential reader to identify immediately with the issues that I'm writing about.
Yeah.
So when I wrote about budgeting practices, it was budgeting practices for small software companies.
Right.
So it would, that subject is relevant for small software companies.
Yeah.
And the book, I didn't charge for the book. It was just on my website. And that was linked in all my posts to the book, and it was downloaded more than 5,000 times within a year.
Interesting. So from that number 5,000, here's the sales guy in me coming out, right? What percentages of leads came in? So 5,000, I don't know if you have this at the top of your head, but maybe you can give me a rough idea. How many leads came in that 1 year after the 5,000 were downloaded?
20.
Sweet. And from that 20, which is probably about right. And for those people listening, and you might be thinking, Wow, that's so low. No, that's actually really good, right? It's a big world.
Yeah.
8 billion people in it, right? And hundreds of millions of companies. So to get 20 leads from 5,000 is amazing. From those 20, how many became clients?
10.
Which is 50% turn is an amazing statistic. That is truly incredible, Hans-Peter. So we have this buyer's journey where the buyer has a problem. I need to pay my vendors more efficiently, right? I identify the problem. Now I go see if there's a solution out there. I get a task force together. I think I'm missing a step there. I look for solutions. I found something, or I know that there is a solution. I put a task force together. Then this task force goes out to look, and at some point, maybe or maybe not, involves a human, but they have a trial of the software. But throughout this whole thing, if you've written a book, every stage of the buyer's journey can touch you.
Yeah.
Right. That's super interesting. And then how does the buyer's journey wrap up? So I've got a trial of some kind of software. I got Hans-Peter's advice along the way because I found his ebook. How do we then wrap up the buyer's journey? How do we execute ink on paper?
Well, after the trial, there'll be an evaluation. Or after the pilot, there'll be an evaluation. Did this improve our situation? And if it did, we will do the full rollout.
Right, exactly.
And if we know when we're talking about software as a service, it's very normal that people publish their prices on the web. So and if it's really enterprise software, there will be a button, call us for a quote.
Right.
And then people will press that button and they'll call you for a quote. And that's what they do with me. I mean, after we've done the first workshop, they'll say, okay, this is great. Now the next step is this and this. How do we do that? And I will sit and need to figure out what it will take and what the value is.
Yeah, fantastic. Hans-Peter, this has been a great podcast because I've never gone through the buyer's journey in a conversation like this before. I think it's hugely valuable, right? It's going to be valuable to my teams at work. I think it's going to be tremendously valuable to anybody else listening to me. And even if you're not in the sales community, ladies and gentlemen, the buyer's journey is something you can apply to almost anything, really. I mean, you need to make critical decisions in your life, whether it's getting married, having children, right? You're engaging other human beings in the buyer's journey. It sounds a little crude to put it that way when you talk about marriage and children, right? But you're trying to get a spouse to buy into something. Let's say if you're not ready, one's not ready to have kids, the other one is, right? You know, all of this buyer's journey, when you're going to buy a house, biggest purchasing decision of anyone's life. And the only tip I'll give to people on buying a house is, if you're, let's say, buying a house for $500,000, would you pay $1 million for that house? Everyone says, no, of course not. Well, you are if you're taking 30 years to pay a mortgage. You're paying $1 million for that house. So don't get out of debt. That's the only thing I'll say on that massive decision. Hans-Peter, where can people find you on your social channels if they want to follow up with questions? Because I'm certain there will be.
LinkedIn is probably the best way to go. I've been there for a while, and I also have a bi-weekly newsletter on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So people can find me there, and from there are links to my various blogs.
Yeah.
My consulting company is TBK Consult, and we have a blog, and TBK Publishing has a lot of free material that you can download. Excellent. Videos that you can watch on these issues. You don't have to buy anything from us. And there are also links to my books.
And exactly as Hans-Peter's name is spelt on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, that's what you'll search for in LinkedIn, and along with perhaps TBK Consult, and then he'll pop up. Hans-Peter, this was really cool. Thank you for walking us through the buyer's journey. I certainly hope we can have another conversation about this and maybe bring on a great testimonial from somebody who has enjoyed the podcast and is engaged in the buyer's journey. So maybe we'll have you back in a year with whoever that person is. Reach out to us anytime. So thank you again. I'm really grateful.
It was a pleasure.
All right. Good man. Take care, everybody.